Okay, before I went any further, what I wanted to do here in the midst of all my painting station and such is say that once the figures are painted, spray painted their main color that they're going to be, like this, the first thing that we're going to do is we paint the bases green. The reason for this is so that when it comes to painting the pants, the green base is already done. And as you can see, by putting them on a there is a glue hair. By putting them on these tongue depressors, the figures are a lot easier to handle. Also, the tongue depressor itself, or the green painting, you don't care if it gets on the figure because the figure is going to have blue pants anyway. For the American Civil War, it's going to be generally a light blue um, pants, trousers. So once all the figures have been mounted this way, then it's just a matter of rinse and repeat for all the trousers of the figures. So you can mount, as you can maybe see here in the video, that you can be this does not have to be neat at all. You can be really sloppy about putting this paint on because it doesn't matter at this point. Okay, so we'll just keep doing this and we'll come back for the next color. Okay, what we are looking at here, first of all, the thing to be noted is that the clear acrylic sheets that are like 1/64 of an inch thin are proving to be vastly more economical than an actual acrylic base that we've been purchasing for many years now. I was afraid at one point that perhaps the acrylic purchased ones, these are typical gaming discs and such, I was afraid that the figures would be too heavy, and it turns out that they're actually not. I was also afraid that they might be popping off the acrylic sheet because of the thinness of it and the use of the hot glue. That also turns out to not be true. So this is very interesting. Unfortunately, you can't get this stuff, well, maybe you can, in extremely thin like this material. So why is this thin material even a desired thing? And the reason is that it costs very low for a great big sheet, like 12 inches by 12 inches, and you can cut it with an X-Acto knife. These are laser cut, and of course that's an 1/8 of an inch, or this is in this case a 1/16 of an inch. And you can see, well, obviously the difference. They're just as clear and they're both just as shiny, although the disc might be a little less reflective. The disc is a little bit more or less reflective, but that's beside the point. Again, the reason we're even using clear bases is so that no matter what is underneath will show through. And also bear in mind that the horses we're looking at now, these are the Airfix horses. The reason that they're even a thing is because they were very affordable. Well, relatively speaking, they were very affordable. And the horses, of course, from Airfix are just junk. Like a lot of things from Airfix, it's just crap. So by using these other horses from a board game, of which I at the moment can't remember, the quality of them is substantially improved. And here's an example. That's a substantial improvement, and of course I haven't done any touch up to the horses yet, as well as painting the basis of the horse green. And again, this brown that you're looking at here is spray painted. So the issue that can be confronted here is the fact that that might be a little bit too light of a brown, but that's what I have. The other brown color I have was almost too dark, and it really kind of, the figure didn't stand out on the horse. Well, clearly, and here you can see the hot glue attached after scraping the bottom of the figures, and the hot glue seems to be sticking really well. Now, a lot of people grab the figures like this, and that's going to cause potentially the guys to pop off of that base. And there you see there's a small gap right there where this figure is not sitting completely flat against that plastic. That may not be an issue, but at any rate, people grab the figures like this, and that could potentially cause a problem. Whereas with the Lexan sheets that are thicker, they have less opportunity to grab something by its figure instead of the base. But people grab by the figure anyway. It doesn't seem to make any difference. Now, bear in mind, we also put on each of our units, no matter what it is, a post. And that post that we're putting on there is for the O-rings that we use for casualties. That post can be used to grab the unit. Another thing that's beneficial about that post is that it sticks just as well because it's plastic, and adhering to the either Lexan or this acrylic sheeting seems to not be an issue when it comes to that melting onto the clear base material, whatever it is. At any rate, I'll show this later. Grabbing the figures, and these are again Airfix so-called 172, but they're clearly not. These are, like all Airfix, they're closer to 20 millimeter, and sometimes, well, you know what the situation is with Airfix. Anyway, again, the quantity, cost benefit was obvious, and that's why I bought these Airfix figures. Also, because these are U.S. Cavalry from Airfix, they're dressed for the prairie conflict with the American Indians, so they don't really have the proper outfit or kitting necessary for the American Civil War. Because of the weather and the campaigning seasons, these guys weren't in overcoats, they didn't have a lot of stuff, they were basically in warm weather, and that's why they are dressed in this manner. I'm obviously, like anybody else, just ignoring that and saying it's U.S. Cavalry. And also, all the guys are in kepis, as opposed to Confederate Cavalry, which I don't think Airfix ever made Confederate Cavalry. It could be wrong, but I don't remember seeing them ever. So all the cavalry, when you were into Airfix, like I was at a very young age, and then quickly matured away from it, thank God, there was no slouch hats. And so therefore you would not be able to say, yeah, these are Western Cavalry. Well, no. Western Cavalry dressed just like Western Infantry. It was a haberdashery, amalgamation of all different kinds. They were blue, but the hats were obviously not always blue. They were a mixture of whatever the guys wanted to wear. Discipline at the time was, yeah, you got to be in uniform, but who knows? A slouch hat is, well, everybody wore it. So anyway, that is the situation and that we're looking at right here. So we're moving forward with getting these guys based, and then final painting will occur. And then you might say, well, are you going to do the strappings? Well, you know, how much effort do you want to put into these figures when they're not that great? I don't know. Perhaps I'll use a Sharpie marker and draw in those lines, because Sharpie does work, and as a matter of fact, I'll demonstrate that. There are other paint markers, but the Sharpie seems to work the best. I need to change glasses. Yes, I have special glasses. Not jewelry, not jeweler's glasses, but close. They are normal glasses of a good prescription to see that figure. Now I'm doing this. Okay. Clearly, well, I won't talk while I'm doing this, but you can see paint is almost better because holding the figure and doing this is a little difficult. I'll stop talking while I do this. And yes, as I get older, this is harder to do. Paint is probably going to be a better thing to do. And look at that. Okay, one guy just came off. Okay, so he came off, and again, that probably has to do with the type of plastic, the polystyrene, and his glue remained. So let me, that's actually fortuitous because now I can get the other side of the horse. And of course you would do this before you mounted him. Also interesting, okay, that guy fell off too. Also interesting is the fact that the satin spray paint is probably not gonna, this is probably not a good thing. It should have been a matte finish. The satin is probably making this harder to do. But remember, from a distance, you won't see that shaky hand business of doing that. But at any rate, I'm almost thinking that the paintbrush will be better for that black. So what I'm doing now is I'm changing out the battery for my glue gun. I'm going to remove just with a X-Acto knife. Yeah, they seem to pop off really easy, so that's going to be a concern. I don't know if it's going to be that same with an actual sheet of acrylic or a well, the disc of glue peels right off. And again, you got to be careful because you don't want to have that X-Acto blade slip and cut yourself while you're trying to remove these, so just be careful. And while I'm doing this, I'm printing horse casualties. There may be no reason to remove the glue residue that's on the base because I'm going to it doesn't always peel off. Okay, so it's not going to cooperate. So I have to slice it off. Okay, let's try this again. Commander will test. First flattening out. Also, we're going to test the infrared glue to see if that has a better adherence. I doubt it, but it might. And also, the interesting thing is about the infrared is that you can put the glue on, put the base on, and then through that clear, engage the infrared light to cause that resin glue to cure within a couple of seconds. I don't know how well that sticks. I guess you might as well just try it. I don't know if that's worth trying. Let's go back to the hot glue. Again, we're going to test with the Commander. Also, it may be the fact that the amount of glue on there has to be substantial, and pressing down is probably going to be required. Am I melting the acrylic? Remember, this is the round acrylic base. I don't know. I don't know if it's melting into it or not. And again, that Commander's base for the horse has to be painted. So let's see if that works. Let's try a stand. And also, you might notice that these bases from Airfix are not perfect. They're a little concave. That may have something to do with it too. So I don't know. And the reason you want to put the figures as far ahead on the base as possible is because the base is got a gap in the back here by my finger for a label and for that post. Over time, maybe they become loose, I don't know. But again, I'm doing this quickly so that I can see if it's a proof of concept, if this even works, because the plastic is so different than other manufactured figures. There's clearly a legacy formula for this type of plastic that nobody's using now. Other companies are using far better plastics. And even though these are still being printed, though I do not know where, the formula seems to be remaining. And these are spray coated, so there is some longevity to the paint sticking on the plastic. Well, I spoke too soon. That paint just came off in my, well, I mean, you're not going to handle the figures like I just did. The paint just came off on my skin because I was pressing so hard on that plastic. Again, the plastic is an issue. However, I also didn't prime those horses. I just spray painted them. And I don't even know if I rinsed them to get any mold release off of those horses. Soon to find out. All right, with that in mind, let's finish this off. those who don't know, this color green is light avocado. Sometimes it's not even necessary to paint the whole figure. I mean the whole base, because it looks a little realistic to not have it so perfectly green. Now, if these figures start to come off again, we'll try super glue. Whoa. We'll try super glue. And again, this is only because I want to rush through this proof of concept and see if these figures are actually worth spending the time on. Well, I'm spending the time regardless. Alright. So I see some places where the paint has not adhered to the horse. For whatever reason, I'm going to have to touch that up. Which is good, because that just tells me to find the right color paint. I believe it's just normal brown or medium brown. So we'll find out. Let's do that right now. If I get lucky, I think it's the same color. Close. I maybe should have primed these horses. Remember what the flag, a cavalry flag, looks like. The guidon, I think it's red. So I'll just again take a guess. And that flag was a bad mold. That's why it looks like that. But I'm just keeping it. I'll probably cover it up with a paper flag anyway. Yeah, I think it's red. Red on top, white on the bottom. Where's the other flag at? This is what the flag is supposed to look like, so somehow that was a manufactured problem. All right, so that's that. Come back with more.